Hello GEOG 8 students, this is your instructor and I am going to be talking about Russia, but first I wanted to talk a little bit about your first map quiz. I have a sample map up here. You will find this on your website. There are PDFs of these template maps that are the maps that you will actually see on your map quiz. And you can see stars indicating, in this case, the location of capital cities and countries in Europe. And you want to be sure to consult the list of map competencies. This quiz will cover both Europe and Russia. And you will only be asked a subset of questions from the list in front of you. Anything that is not on this list will not be asked. And so you will have a series of multiple choice questions, and you will identify letters on the map corresponding to particular features. In order to quiz yourself, one suggestion is to use the course website, the textbook website. This is actually linked from the home page on the course website. If you scroll down, there's a hyperlink to this website. And if you look under chapters, you can actually choose to get information. So you guys actually read a systematic essay from this last week, but you also have map quizzes. And so if you choose a particular map quiz, in this case, looks like I have a little bit of a Adobe Flash problem, but what will happen is you will bring these up and you can choose countries, and it'll indicate whether you got the country right or not. And so it's kind of a nice way to quiz yourself in advance of the graded quiz that'll be coming up this Friday. So again, consult the list, cross-reference it against these maps, use the sample map quizzes that are available on the website, and you should do fine on the map quiz. So this week we are moving into talking about Europe and actually Russia. We just came out of Europe. And Russia, of course, is something we've been all hearing a lot about in recent months. And now we're going to try to get a little bit of a hold on this geography of this vast country. It should be noted that these maps exaggerate the size of Russia just based on the way that the map projection is performed. But suffice to say that when you have 11 time zones in contrast to 4 or 5 for the United States, you get a sense of just how vast this country is, the largest territorial state in the world. And Russia is interesting and noteworthy in a number of regards. It has a very interesting human history. We're going to focus a little bit more on the physical geography of Russia. And in this realm, we include these 3 states, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia, which are found between the Caspian and the Black Seas. But of course, Russia will be the focus of our discussion. And it's worth starting out this discussion by looking at population. And if I drape a world population density map, and I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of a transparency on our online GIS here. And of course, you can see the population concentration in China. This is India. You can see Western Europe being a major population cluster for the world. And you'll notice that population drops off significantly when one gets into Russia. And of note is the fact that Russia's population, while it's sparsely distributed across the country, is actually mostly concentrated in this area. This is actually Moscow. And once one gets into the eastern part of the country, population falls off significantly. Indeed, the Ural Mountains, which is this north-south trending mountain range, is going to represent a major barrier between the two sort of broad regions of Russia, what we'll describe as European Russia, centered in and around Moscow. Moscow and St. Petersburg, the two most recognizable cities in Russia. And then once we get east of the Ural Mountains, we're getting into Asian Russia, and again, sparsely populated. And we'll get into some of the extreme climates associated with Siberia. Once again, let's go ahead and pull up this population density, and we'll just sort of drag this transparency slider in here a little bit so we can see some of these place names and where the population is found in Russia. And again, you can see that because of climatic reasons, you'll note that the population tends to be more concentrated. You see the large red blotches indicating significant cities, and mostly they are in the southern extent of Russia, and again, largely to the west of the Ural Mountains. Okay, so as we proceed through and look at Russia, there's a focus in this chapter on climate. And so looking at climate for Russia, one of the two primary measures of climate is temperature, the other being precipitation. And first of all, we'll just take a look at an average July temperature. And the red areas are going to be warmer temperatures. The blue areas are going to be cooler temperatures. And on this particular map, we can actually click on the map itself. So we can look at this area of the Caucasus regions, and we can see an average temperature of 32 to 50 degrees. That's actually a fairly high elevation area there. As we move into the south, we'll see temperatures increasing. You see the average of 77 to 86. But as we move, and again, we can focus some attention in and around Moscow. You might be interested to know what Moscow's summertime temperatures look like, and you can see 59 to 68 degrees, so fairly mild, cool summers. Realize when you're seeing these average temperatures that these include overnight low temperatures as well, so hence the number's going to be a little bit lower. Certainly they get temperatures up into the 70s and 80s during the daytime. But if we were to go up into this northern extent up towards the Arctic Ocean, you see a couple of different seas here, the Barents Sea, the Kara Sea, that are part of this larger Arctic Ocean complex. And you can see the temperatures drop off quite a bit if we look at these areas. Now, of course, if we were to shift this and look at January average temperatures, things are going to cool off quite a bit. So let's go ahead again and we'll take a look at the area around Moscow, and we can see that they average temperatures that are well below freezing, again accounting for the fact that they also have overnight temperatures reflected here. But as we get up into these northern expanses of Siberia, you see extreme temperatures, 40 to 22 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. Some of the harshest, coldest climates found anywhere on Earth, which of course explains in part why we see such sparse population in these far northern reaches of Russia. Now, a topic that we'll be looking at, and in your reading you'll see maps of the Köppen classification system. You'll see that there's a wide extent of D climates. These are your colder climates, including humid continental and subarctic climates that reflect the harsh conditions in Russia, and also you'll see where the population correlates to these milder climate conditions. But of climate change is playing a role, and we're starting to see some changes taking place. And so what I'm going to show you next is a predicted temperature change to the year 2050 and predicted precipitation change to the year 2050. And I want to bring up first the description of this so you see where this data is coming from. This is from the National Atmospheric Research Community Climate System Model, which is part of this large network of data and modeling projects in which they're looking at possible changes that may be coming down the pike. And you can see that the projected change in precipitation in 2050 is based on the 1960 to 1990 average, assuming that greenhouse gas emissions will continue and ultimately peak in the year 2040 before they start to decline. So with that background, let's take a look at what some of these data show us. Okay, now on the surface you see sort of a lot of colors indicated here. The legend is a little bit difficult to read, but what we're seeing here is precipitation figures, and we're going to see some of these colors that are indicating increases and decreases in temperatures, or precipitation for different areas. And so if we were to look at a particular area, this is sort of a more helpful way to look at this map. We could go through and if we were to go down into the Mediterranean, for example, we would see that they're predicting a decrease in rainfall, 5 millimeter decrease, 2 millimeter decrease. There's a 2 millimeter increase, a 7 millimeter increase. And one of the things that is a take-home message from this is that they're predicting higher precipitation totals because warmer air stores more moisture. And so Moscow's been seeing some very large snowfall totals in recent years as a result of the fact in most of these Arctic areas you will notice that precipitation is actually increasing, and generally speaking you will see trends that indicate in places like North Africa they're actually showing us some degree of change. A lot of these are showing 0 degree changes. And then if we were to look at average temperatures, what we'll also see is these darker colors indicating projected increases in temperature. So one of the take-home messages, this is abundantly reflected in data, that the Arctic is warming. And so we're seeing these predicted temperatures 3 degrees, 5 degrees Celsius. And as we go into lower latitudes, you'll start to see those numbers decrease. So the projected warming trend is higher in the Arctic region, and this is partly reflected in the decrease in snow ice. Arctic sea ice in particular has been decreasing significantly. So this is an important contributor, important factor in looking at Russia and what Russia's situation is looking like going forward. They have abundant resources and also significant concerns with their population. They have a population implosion taking place. Their population has been decreasing and is projected to steadily decrease. Birth rates are dropping. Health indicators are creating shorter life expectancies, especially among the male population. And so this is a concern across Russia. And of course, Russia is a proud nation and one that has been reasserting itself on the world stage in recent years following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. They will continue to be a player on the world stage, and we'll explore it online.